This is Gestoras. Today's episode is in English. El episodio de hoy de Gestoras es en inglés. Lyanne Alvarado is a dedicated arts administrator with a multifaceted career spanning artistic, administrative, and fundraising areas. Currently, she serves as individual giving manager at Stages, a major theater company in Houston, Texas. Previously, she was a philanthropy officer for corporate partnerships and philanthropy officer acquisitions at the Houston Grand Opera. Lyanne holds 2 bachelors of music in music education and in vocal performance from the University of North Texas, as well as a master's in vocal performance from Texas State University. This was our conversation. Hi, Lyanne. Thank you for making time to be with us today. It's so great to have you here.
Hi, Ximena. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, as you know, we're going to start out with your origin story, as we discussed before when we were preparing for this conversation. And I'm very curious about what led you to voice and to music education. I know you have an extensive background in voice as an academic, as a performer, as a teacher. So how did you end up doing that?
Yeah, so I actually grew up with a lot of music and dancing in my household, especially cumbia music. That was really what my dad danced, and I would beg him to show me how to dance the cumbia style. And of course, like every little girl in Houston, Texas growing up, I grew up watching the movie Selena, it's the biopic of Selena Quintanilla. And so then that's really when, the impact that movie had on me was like, I started connecting the dancing to the singing, and I would start singing around the house. And that eventually turned into me getting very involved in choir growing up. And my parents were always very supportive of anything that I wanted to do. And I started creating these dreams around music. But I had to show them that it was my passion, and I had to show them that I was taking it seriously, because they wouldn't accept it as just a hobby if I was giving all my time to it. So I did, I took that very seriously and was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I'm very passionate about music. Having some kind of element of music in my life is my safe space. And I was very blessed because I also had choir teachers who always made the choir room a safe space for me and my friends to be, from middle school all the way up through high school and even into college. And just to give you an idea, my boyfriend and I actually met in choir in high school. So you can imagine.
That's so romantic.
It was the place to be. It was the choir room in Cypress Lakes High School. Giving my high school a shout out, because Stephanie Handel was my choir teacher at the time, and it just was the place to be. So really, that's where my love for the arts, it was embedded in me at such a young age. And in many ways, I even have to take a step back and realize, like, man, this is really all I know sometimes. It's just this world. But I love it, and I consider myself very lucky to be in it.
Were there other people in your family who sang? Your dad danced cumbias, which is fantastic. Are there other singers in your family?
No, the singing was like, were all like, where did that come from? I actually did have a grandma who used to sing, but she passed when my mom was very young, when my mom was a child. And my mom would tell me that my grandma was a singer and she would sing a lot around the house. But, and so that's one connection that I have to my grandma that I never got a chance to meet. But other than that, I wouldn't ask any of my family members to sing, bless their heart.
Would you ask them to not sing, please?
Yeah. Stick to dancing. They're great dancers, but, they would call me the songbird.
Actually, that resonates with me. My oldest kid, whom I was telling you about earlier, their first sentence was, "No, mommy, no sing, no, no."
Oh my God! And you're like, okay, rude.
Yeah, fine. Yes. So your parents wanted you to take this seriously, and you certainly did, right? You had your undergraduate degree and then your master's degree in voice performance, but that's not what you do today. You've done a lot of arts management work simultaneously, and now almost exclusively. How did you end up doing arts management?
So, like many people, I graduated with a master's in vocal performance in the year 2020. So you can imagine how much of a shock that was to, finger quotes, my life plan, right? All of a sudden, this bubble I had been living in popped, and it became a very scary time because I didn't know what to do. So I really buried my head in just trying to stay with music. I was doing all of the summer opera programs, I even took like a grant writing course over the summer. I mean, I just like my solution to not knowing what to do was just to stay busy. I also was like teaching elementary kids music lessons online, and I was spread so thin at the time to where it was unsustainable. I have memories of me almost falling asleep during a lot of the meetings I had with all of these like random jobs. And then I even worked at like Bath and Body Works in the middle of that. I mean, I was just so spread thin because on top of that, I still had to pay the bills. And so I really was like, how can I find stability in my life while using all of the skills and using all of the education that I've had to put it into a meaningful job and career that means something to me. And that's when I discovered Opera Theater of St. Louis had this fellowship that they created for BIPOC individuals. It was the Clayco Future Leaders Fellowship. And it was specifically to train young administrators and sort of give them their like big beginning position. Because one thing I've noticed in the arts is it's so much about who you know. Like the arts organizations are very hard to get into if you don't have connections or if you don't have something that shows, hey, this is what I'm getting. And now I'm starting to see arts management degrees, but that for me was not something that I was even made aware of when I had started my higher education. It was either you become a singer, you become a classically trained singer, or you become a choir teacher. It was like those were the only two options when I was looking at career paths. So all of a sudden there was this opportunity that just kind of like came from up above. Like, hey, are you looking to start a career in arts administration? Are you a person of color? Come here, we'll train you, we'll pay you money to, it was just almost like too good to be true. And sure enough, I to this day still credit Opera Theater of St. Louis for just showing me a whole other purpose in my life. Because up until that point, if you would have asked me what I wanted to be, I would have told you, I want to be a professor of voice. I want to keep singing for the rest of my life, this and that. But I never would have thought, arts administration. But once I got accepted into that fellowship and I moved to St. Louis to complete it, I never looked back. I fell in love with the arts administration world. And my fellowship, there were 3 different fellow positions that were offered. There was one in administration, one in development, fundraising, and one in artistic. And I really could have gone to any of the positions. I really could have thrived or been happy choosing any of them. But I first just wanted to learn what it takes to run an opera company. What is an opera company, right? You'd be surprised to see how little singers know about the very companies that they sing for. They don't know about the big machine and what are all the parts of this machine. So that was very important to me, was to say, okay, well, let me get in on this administration role. Let me apply for this one. Let me learn about what it takes from an eagle's eye point of view of what an opera organization is. And then I'll go from there. I'll adapt. I'll see where I can find my way in this new career. It was probably one of the scariest, but also most fulfilling decisions of my life, to just move to a city where I didn't know anyone, by myself, try this whole new career at the same time. I mean, it was really life-changing in the best way, because even though I was thriving there at Opera Theater St. Louis, I knew Houston was my home, and I knew that I wanted to find my way back home. And I was looking at Houston Grand Opera like, okay, what are the ways in? How can I find my way to being in this company? And so eventually, through the fellowship, I was able to have a supervisor that I just absolutely love and respect so much, Michelle Myers. She helped me find the right position to start at HGO. And so I started in artistic admin. I had 2 seasons at Houston Grand Opera, where that's really where I learned a lot about how an arts organization runs an arts department. What are all the logistics? What is all the admin work that it takes to have and to run an arts department? But even then, I was like, I really want to be a fundraiser. And after about 6 months of harassing everyone in the fundraising team here at HGO, and they'll get a kick out of this because I invited so many of my team members to like coffees and lunches. And like, I just wanted to get to know them and like, what, how do they feel about their career? How did they find it? And so I was kind of doing informational interviews before any position even popped up. I was trying to do my research of like, if this is the leap that I want to get to eventually, right? Because I had already had the administration, I already had the arts, and I was like, okay, fundraising, I'm coming for you, And so,
that is super, super smart. And I'm interested in this thing that you've mentioned a couple of times already, that in your voice training, you had no kind of training or no kind of exposure to the kind of organization that you were expected to be singing in. So you were being prepared for a job, but you were going to have to take the organization on faith. Was that sort of like
and I think a lot of singers do. I think that was one of the things that like I realized. And of course, we have incredible artists that come here to Houston Grand Opera. I mean, we cast artists from all over the world. And I do get the sense that they know who they're working with because they've been doing it for years, and they have agents and they have people that manage their career and that can communicate all these things to them, right? But for people that are younger singers, I just think that's something that's a luxury that they don't have, is knowing what all it takes. And unless you do the, informational, interviewing, it's sometimes you really have to take that education and put it in your own hands, empower yourself to teach yourself these things, because if it's not taught in school, does that mean you're just never going to learn it? No, if there's something you want to learn more about, you got to do it. And so that's really how I saw me taking control of my own career, is to just be a sponge and try to learn as much as I could, because also Houston Grand Opera is huge. And so I also was just trying to figure out all these moving parts from the inside. And eventually it worked out, because once a position opened up in the fundraising team, they were knocking on my door saying like, okay, Lyanne, you've been bugging us for like 6 months. All right, we finally have this officer position for you. And I was like, oh, okay, great. Yeah, let's talk about it.
How about that? Yeah, no, and I think probably what impressed them, or what they noticed, is what I'm noticing here, right? That you were very strategic and also very humble, right? Because you were a person with already a master's degree, already performing, already having led programs, and here you are in this starter position in the organization, and inviting people, like you said, to coffees, to lunches, to learn from them, and that's both really smart strategically and also really impressive. It speaks to humility and openness, and of course, everybody would love to work with a person like that. And you're brave too, right? Because as you said, your home is Houston, and in the middle of something that was devastating, like the pandemic, to a performer, you found a way to turn that into the next phase of your life. So,
a reborn. Yeah, it really did feel. And in some ways, I think of that time as sort of the end of one chapter. And that was the end of my chapter of singing, because Zeman, I was telling you this earlier, but I think it's important to share that, I have this arts and music vocal performance degree that in many ways I still use today in the work that I do, but I haven't formally sang as an opera singer, as a classically trained artist, in over 4 years. And I think people always hear that with a sense of, oh my gosh, are you okay? Are you not being fulfilled? Oh my God, that was your dream. And honestly, like I'm totally happy with where my path went and with the education that I have, because you learn so much more than just singing and when you're getting a master's degree. You learn so much more than just singing when you're getting a bachelor's, right? You're learning people skills. You're learning how to meet deadlines. You're learning about yourself. You're becoming a person. You're becoming your own person during that higher education period. And there's so much of the skills that I built as a singer, which singers are scrappy. We are resourceful. We will always find a way to get things done. And those are parts of me that I feel that I will never let that go, whether I'm singing or not. But in this day and age, I will have to leave the singing to the professionals on the stage. My bucket is filled with listening to some of the best artists in the world sing, and I get access to them and they're singing.
Oh my gosh, I cannot imagine what it must be like to be in the Houston Grand Opera and listen to all these people. So now you are the Philanthropy Officer of Corporate Partnerships at the Houston Grand Opera. What does that mean? What is your job? What do you do?
Yes. So I manage about $1 million in corporate funds at Houston Grand Opera. And I also have a small but growing individual giving portfolio. So at HGO, we have proposals that are customized to fit the needs of any corporate partner that we meet. And here in Houston, it's a very interesting place to work because the energy industry is booming. So we have a lot of big energy companies. We have big banks, the law firms. I mean, the law firm scene in particular in Houston is thriving. So we have a lot of different industries that we could tap into. And just in the past, I think I've been in this role now maybe 7 months, if not a little bit over 7 months. I've learned more about Houston and more about the way that the money moves in the city than I have in my whole life. So it's in that way that I feel closer to my city than ever. And at HGO, because we customize the proposals to the corporate partner, like there's no one size fits all partnership. That's really where I get to be creative, and I get to create these proposals based on what I heard from the person, like my contact that I meet at that corporation. And it really takes a village to come to something that is clean and polished and ready to deliver. But a lot of what HGO trusts me in is to be able to lead those conversations, ask the right questions, walk away from those meetings feeling like I have what I need to create this proposal. And even when I send them the email with the proposal and everything, it's like an informational packet, I tell them, hey, in today's meeting, you mentioned this meant a lot to you. This is something that you told me that really takes the partnerships to the next level. This is what a successful partnership looks like to you. So this is why I presented this, right? So there's a flow to it. But that's only the beginning, because if they say yes, then boom, you start this whole relationship where you have to nurture and take care of this contact. And even though I'm working with corporations and working with their money, not individuals' money, I still have to keep that contact happy, and I still have to make them feel heard, and I still have to build that trust that we have, because a logo is attached to it, right? If I have a logo like Bank of America or Houston Methodist or whoever attached with a partnership, then they have to trust me to be able to take care of that corporate name and make sure that we are meeting all of the proposal things that we had promised them in the first place. So there's a lot to it, and I'm still learning and I'm still growing, but it is definitely one of the most fulfilling roles I've ever had in my life.
So what you're talking about, this high touch, high communication, and personalized and personal communication is not just for individual donors or major individual donors. That companies, in the end, it's down to a personal relationship with people. And I'm assuming it takes time to cultivate a relationship. What kinds of things are important for you that you bring in from your previous expertise? Are there skills that you were using as a musician, as an educator, that you bring into this position now?
Absolutely. So there are two aspects to the work that I do. Me as an officer externally representing Houston Grand Opera, and then also internally. There is a lot of cross-departmental work that I do. And so being a people person is one of the things that I've brought from, and then also just being on, right? Like whenever I'm external, I am on. I am in my best, fit, my hair, my everything. I'm representing the company, but also I'm representing myself. And so that's something that I've definitely taken from being a singer. Like, listen, I can whip up a cocktail dress and heels. I have it ready to go in my car at all times. And that's something that was just normal to me, right? But it was just so funny because you wouldn't think that would translate to being a philanthropy officer, but it absolutely is, because some of these corporations, they're, especially the law firms, especially some of these banks, it's people in suits and dresses and business, so it's that sort of like on the go, quick, you have to be ready with it. I think the people person is something that is a part of my outgoing introvert personality. And so even though I'm an introvert, I like that being an introvert means that I'm very in tune to people's body language when I'm in the room with them. How to read the room is something that I think I gained as a singer. And even as a teacher, honestly, like being able to just check in on the people in front of me. Are they invested in what I'm saying? Are they listening to or am I losing them, right? If I start to get the eyes going left or right, or, the body, okay, I got to say something, I got to switch it up. Or sometimes too, I'm talking too much. I have to remember to stop, breathe. And the rule of being a philanthropy officer is 7:30. I should only be speaking with my contact about 30% of the time. And the 70% is them answering the questions and me getting the opportunity to get to know them. So things like that, the self-awareness is something that I definitely got from my artist age. Because, singers, we're constantly, even when we're singing and we're making everything look easy and we're portraying another person, we're still tuned in with ourselves and making sure that everything else is okay vocally, everything is working as planned. And that's something that I feel nothing will ever be that hard in my life, being a singer. So everything after that, I'm like, I feel like I just tap into one of the things of one of the elements of what it took to put on a performance. And it's so much easier now. So I still have major love and respect for artists who are doing the thing and finding ways to thrive in the industry today. Internally, it's a whole different ballgame because when I make these proposals, I run the risk of making promises on different departments at HGO on their behalf, right? So everything that I'm making promises on, oh, yes, you want your logo here. You want to be blasted on collateral here. You want this kind of thing. Okay, let me check with my marketing department and make sure that they can do that if that aligns with their bandwidth, with what they're able to offer. Oh, you want to support our community and learning programs. You want to give this much money to this program. Let me check with my community and learning department and make sure that we even need money for that program. What if that one program is overfunded and we actually have no funding on this other program, right? So it's those communication skills and diplomacy to make sure that there's no tensions that rise when I'm out here making promises and proposals left and right. It's a bad look if I don't come back and check in with my team members. So that's another big skill, is that trust. For both my people externally and internally, building trust is a huge part of my job, and one that I'm very good at, and I'm proud to say that I'm very good at.
Yeah, and it sounds like that trust also comes with being able to establish clear boundaries, right? I can't promise you this. You have to protect your team. So, and you also have to protect your clients. So I assume there's a lot of give and take on all sides that you have to balance really carefully and keep track of.
Absolutely. You nailed it. That's exactly how it is.
This is really, really fascinating. I think I haven't heard a fundraiser talk about the negotiating aspect of it before. I've heard folks talk about the communication aspect, but this careful balancing act that you have to do between the organization and the patron, right, is really, really important, really interesting. I'm going to ask you another question about the skills you bring in to do the job that you do, or maybe the way you approach work in general. So you're Latina. You are of Mexican descent, Tejana. So how does that come into, is there anything from your cultural heritage that you bring into your work or that you feel informs the way you approach work?
Yes. Both of my parents raised me to have a strong work ethic and pride, and take pride in the work that I do. Like they lived as examples of that. And that's something that they will always be examples of what a hard worker and leader is to me. And so, and also I think that culturally Mexican Americans have it's that they're known to be hard workers. And the stereotype is more with labor work. And while that is 100% true, right? Like, we are hard workers, period. I also want to shine that we are hard workers on many industries, and we apply that same work ethic, get it done attitude that you see in labor workers in many industries across Houston and in the world. But I say Houston because Houston is a particularly place where you really see the different Latino cultures thriving, growing in ways that I love, and I want to be a part of it. And I also was very fortunate to grow up as a traveler. Like, I grew up going back and forth from Mexico a lot. I would spend summers there. And when my parents divorced, when I was a young age, my dad actually lived in LA, and I even would travel back and forth from Houston to LA. I have family in Chicago. So I was able to see different major cities that had this thriving Latino culture. And I believe that made me a more open-minded and well-rounded person, because even though I love Houston and Houston is where I want to build roots in, I also know that there are other cities that are also have these thriving Latino cultures that I want to learn how they're doing it. How are we doing compared to them? What are ideas? What are things that we can take from different cultures and different success stories that we can bring here to our own home? And so that's something that I'm always very open to, is just hearing how are people with different backgrounds and perspectives bringing their own stories to make a place better, and how can I do that in my own version here in Houston?
No, absolutely. And you were talking about getting to know Houston in a different way than you had ever known it now that you are in philanthropy. I'm curious about that. If you can talk a little bit about that. What did you learn about Houston? What do you believe what in your view is the corporate philanthropy landscape like in Houston? And why would a corporation want to contribute to an opera company?
Yes, absolutely. So it's interesting because Houston Grand Opera has, I think it was founded in like 1955. And so Houston Grand Opera has been here for a very long time. And even still, it just shocks me how many people that are from Houston and live in Houston have no idea what Houston Grand Opera is. And so it's very interesting for me to go into these spaces throughout Houston and speak on what it is that this awesome organization is doing, represent this organization, but also represent myself and say, hey, look, I'm from here, y'all. We got to check this out. Like, I grew up here and I'm looking at this thing from the inside, and let's get in on this, right? Like, let's see what we can do to be a part of this community, this big thriving, because also like Houston Grand Opera is like one of the most major opera organizations in the world, especially in the United States. And for people to not know that they have this like major arts institution that is bringing singers from all around the world to present on this stage, that's crazy to me. No, Houstonians, listen up, let's wake up, like, let's check this out. We have the right to be exposed to this level of art and also bring our story forward so that we can allow the companies like this that are the major arts organization of a city to represent the cities that they live in, right? So that's also my mission from the inside is, okay, let's put the Houston and Houston Grand Opera. Like you say, this is a cultural institution of the city. What ways can we make sure that this city looks, or this organization looks like the city that it's being built in? And it's been incredible because in my work, I get to be exposed to other industry leaders. I show off to my family all the time, like, oh yeah, I have this like CEO's phone number. Oh yeah, no worries. I have this like regional president in my email that I email and check in with all the time, right? So I have these like big players and big decision makers in the city of Houston that I'm also proud to say are, okay, I'm not going to lie and say a majority, but many are Latinos. So it's also showing me the success stories of Latinos in the city that I grew up in. And it's totally just blowing up my vision of what I thought a success story in Houston was, because Latinos are here, we're making great impact, and it's something that excites me. And I'm like, okay, I want to do that too in the arts, right? How can I be the like big person decision maker, and how can I be a CEO? How can I run a department in my city and turn these people that I look up to into my colleagues, right? How can I make sure that one day I grow up to be in the mix of it and sitting at the table making these decisions?
So what are you doing to make that happen?
Yeah. So, right. First, I just got to look at the job that's in front of me, right? I haven't even been in this position for a year, but while I have the job in front of me, it's very important to me that I do a good job at the job I have. And that can be hard because I think people get caught up in what's next. Okay, I got this job. Where do I need to go next? And it's like, sometimes you just need to take a beat and bake a little bit longer, like get good at the thing that's in front of you. And that's something that I'm already getting high praise from my colleagues, from my supervisors on the great work that I'm doing. But I'm also holding myself and them accountable of like, okay, I love the compliments all day, but also I checked in with my boss and was like, hey, can we have a 3-month evaluation? Hey, can we have a 6-month evaluation? And I went to them and said, I want to have check-ins to make sure that I'm on track, that I'm doing exactly what was expected of me. And what does it mean to go above and beyond? and how much time do I have to reach that goal. And that is also helping me define my career path and knowing, okay, if I want to be associate director, if I want to go up to being a director, not just at HGO, but in my career, right? What can I do to make these moves to get there? So that's something that I'm consistently checking in with myself and keeping myself accountable of like, okay, you see all these people that are leading the city. They didn't just wake up there. They had their path and they had check-ins and they made it happen. And they also let the world know that they wanted to be those leaders. What are you doing to let the world know that you want to be the next leader in Houston, that you want to be the leading face in fine arts and nonprofit here in Houston? And so those are the questions I'm constantly asking myself as I continuously build my career.
You've talked about how you haven't been in this job for a year yet, but you've already had some significant accomplishments. What are you most proud of, or what can you share something that you're particularly proud of that you've accomplished so far?
Yes. So when I started at Houston Grand Opera, I was actually looking for ways to be more involved with the company. And Corey Dastur, our general director and CEO, mentioned this like brainchild of hers and Patrick Summers, who is our artistic director. They created this committee called the Equity, Access, and Belonging Committee. And they had sort of a open call to anyone in the company who's interested in joining and helping found this committee. And so I immediately raised my hand and was like, okay. And I'll be honest with you, Ximena, it took about a year for the committee. There was about 10 of us, I think, when we started. It took about a year for us to just figure out who we were and what did we want to be and what was the impact that we wanted to create in our organization. And within that year, we created this structure that was, we wanted every department to be represented in the committee. So at least 2 people are going to be represented from each department, 1 or 2 people. Like every department is going to have a face or a person in that committee. And then we also had a succession plan. Like you only need to be in the committee for like a year. After that, it's kind of like we'll check in and see if you want to keep going or if it's your time to sunset and let somebody else join, right, to kind of represent your department. And up until now, I'm currently not in the Equity, Access, and Committee Belonging Committee because I've already sunsetted my role. But up until today, even still, there have only been volunteers. From what I know, no one's been voluntold to join the committee. So that also tells you something about the committee itself. But in that year of where we were just creating ourselves, it was a lot easier for us to say who we were not. So it was like, okay, we are not HR. We are not the whistleblower committee. We are not this. We're not right. And once we are able to kind of scrape away all of like what we are not, what we're like, okay, so what are we? We realized at the heart of it, we were a committee that its focus was to improve and create a positive company culture. So it became all about the company culture at Houston Grand Opera. It was all internal. So it was by the people, for the people. Because also one of the things we had to tell everyone is like, we are not the community and learning department. Like there were so many people that came up and they're like, we should be doing this in the city of Houston. We should be, and it's like, that's great. We have a whole department that does that. That's not what the Equity, Access, and Belonging Committee does, right? So
right. Tell them.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll let them know. And so once we like kind of had this committee, I, without even realizing it, just because I would get excited about the work that we do, one of the co-chairs at the time had stepped away. And so they had a unanimous vote. And they also asked me before they voted, would you be interested in being a co-chair? And after this I didn't even know they were doing this vote. They were like, oh, by the way, yeah, everyone agreed. You're the next co-chair. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what an honor to be trusted with this committee. And so, I had the pleasure of starting as a co-chair with Brian Speck, who is now at the Met. We miss him a lot, but he was a fabulous co-chair because also what I got out of that experience was like just learning how every decision at the committee level, at the executive level, through board of directors, how every decision trickles down and affects everybody else. You could come into the committee and have this one idea, and then it was so interesting to see how this idea could affect different people from different departments, whether for better or for worse, right? Like, let's talk about it. And so it would turn into these discussions of change and what obstacle is in front of you that isn't making you feel like you belong at work. What are equity issues? What are access issues that you're facing as an employee at HGO? And so those are the kinds of discussions we would have. But of course, none of those discussions matter if you don't have decision makers in the committee making actual change. So in the beginning, the committee would actually come up with all of these like recommendations, and we would present them to our executive leaders to make like the final changes of like them kind of giving the yes, this is something we can do, or let us think about this, or no, this is not possible and this is why, right? And that we very quickly saw had a power dynamic of then it kind of became like all of these company members sort of having to ask like, can we do this? And for some ideas to they say yes, and then other ideas no, but why, right? Or like what's the obstacle there? And sometimes it's bigger than just us, right? And so now the committee's changed to now where every time we have like these big meetings, the executive leaders are actually in on those conversations so that they could tell us those obstacles a lot sooner. I mean, it was so cool, Ximena. It was so cool to be a part of it. Like it was like,
so you don't have to go back and forth, but you have everybody in the room.
Exactly. And they realized that as I was kind of coming to an end, because also I was coming to an end as I was like starting this position. It was a lot. Like I was able to do it for like maybe the first couple months of doing this new job and then also being a co-chair. But so being a co-chair was like a whole other full-time job. So on top of my full-time job. So, and we made change. One of the proudest things that came of that was like we started posting salary ranges on Houston Grand Opera's websites. And that was something that just never previously had been done before. It was a conversation that came up in the committee. It was, we got our head of finance and administration involved, and she was able to communicate to us up front why we're able to do why maybe obstacles came in the way. And together as an organization, we were able to make that change. That took like a year though, so it was just so interesting to see how long some changes take to trickle on and come into fruition, and how some solutions might have been really easy. Like another obstacle we realized was that a lot of people that worked at HGO that aren't in the artistic department had very little knowledge of why artistic decisions were being made the way that they were, right? Like, and how that affects different departments. Not having that information, not knowing like you might know some, like you might be able to say, yeah, I know what next season is, but I could not tell you why we put those operas together for next season, right? Things like that. So we brought that up to our meetings. We discussed it, and very quickly our executive leaders were like, oh, why don't we just have like staff summer learning sessions where we teach.
That's amazing.
It was so awesome. And like staff members showed up. They like were curious to learn about, like, tell me about the and it was also awesome because it wasn't anything that was like publicized publicly. It was just for us. So it was a chance for the artistic team to be really honest and open with us and answer questions and just tell us about why they chose the opera that they did, why they chose the casting as it was, why the directors were choosing the creative, and what history, where else had that been produced. I mean, we learned so much. And that's something that barely just got premiered, if you will, last summer, and we will continue on this summer and beyond. So those are the kinds of things that were happening. And as I was facing like the end of my time, and I was like, okay, guys, y'all are going to have to find another co-chair. Nobody else stepped up to be co-chair because everybody knew how much time I was putting into this. And at the end of the day, the only person that it made sense to step up and take over the co-chair was our very own general director and CEO, Corey Stewart. And that was huge for us to be able, I mean, it was her brainchild, and for her to like come after we figured out who we were and what was our flow. She was the only person that could step in after I had stepped down. So that is something that I take a lot of pride in, because and now I'm totally happy with just seeing it fly, right? Like, I'm like, okay, the impact that I made while I was on there, I'm super proud of, but this thing will continue. I need it to continue flying without me. I need other voices in the room. There are other incredible colleagues and leaders that I respect in those committees that I have complete faith and trust that HGO is now heading in the direction that is the future, that where it needs to be, right? And so that is definitely one of my proudest accomplishments. And then, of course, another accomplishment that I'm very proud of is I'm currently a Sphinx Lead Fellow.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yes, yes, I know. I was like, I cannot have this interview without.
Yes, no, absolutely. That is huge. So, what are you doing there?
Yes, so I just got accepted into this program. Sphinx Lead is a 2-year executive leadership development program where they accept Black and Latinos to, Black and Latino administrators to this program, and we essentially get paid stipends for certain things throughout the season, but they pay for all the retreats. They, take care of us, and they lead all of the administrative work. We just have to show up and network and take advantage of all that the program has to offer. And essentially what it is on these retreats, they'll take us to an arts organization. Like, for example, we just, our last retreat was from the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, who hosted us. We got to meet their leadership. We got to meet the CEO, Kim Noltemy, and she taught us about her story, her journey into being a CEO. And we get to be in the room with these leaders and just get to ask them questions. The program is access to leaders and access to information to help build our careers as the future executive leaders in the arts. So it's something that I'm very proud of. And actually one of the reasons why I heard about your podcast, because some of my fellow Sphinx Lead fellows were also being interviewed. So it's definitely something I'm proud to be a part of.
No, it's an incredible program. And yes, all of your some of them are your cohort, some are from an earlier cohort, but they're all extraordinary. And this program sort of lets them leap past some of those lower level obstacles that just get in the way of people being able to develop their careers, because they seem to be lower level, but they really get in the way of being able to follow a career path that leads to leadership positions. So, the Sphinx Lead program is incredible. So congratulations, because I know it's also highly selective. So it's a big deal to be part of that. Thank you.
It's an honor. Absolutely. And I'm just getting started. It's hard to believe that we're already going to be on like our 3rd retreat by the end of this month. And it's flying by. The program is 2 years for each cohort. And so I'm trying to take moments to stop and appreciate that I'm in the middle of it and just trying to enjoy and take advantage of all the great things it has to offer.
You seem to have a very methodical approach to your learning, right? And to your personal and professional development. So what do you have your eye on?
So I currently, because I'm a philanthropy officer in corporate partnerships, I almost feel like that's like a niche within a niche, right? Like it's so specific, and the skills that I'm building around this are so specific. So really this year is actually me trying to expand that knowledge and learn more from the other parts of a fundraising team. So I'm actually part of an institutional giving team here at Houston Grand Opera. And institutional giving, it means just that. Like anything that could be credited as like a donor that is from an institution, whether that's a government institution, a foundation, or corporate, it's like our mini team within our department. But we have still this whole other part of our department that is individual giving, acquisitions, and in many ways we speak the same language, but it's not, right? It's almost like different accents within the same language, because a lot of what we do is the same, but they have their own style of how to cultivate, how to research and find individual giving donors. And especially like in a city of Houston, it's like, where do you even begin? It's a huge city. So where do you even begin with researching who would be interested in supporting something like the opera? And I actually like to see myself as a matchmaker, because a lot of what I do, people are like, oh my gosh, I could never, ever ask someone for money, and I'm like, girl, me neither. Like a year ago, I never thought I would have been doing this. But it's cool because what it feels like nowadays is like I get to ask these people that I meet, whether it's a contact at a corporate or an individual prospect, I get to just ask them, like, what excites you? Like, what have you ever been to the opera? Like, what are, oh, you want to provide more programming for kids in the city of Houston? Well, guess what? Oh my gosh, Houston Grand Opera actually has, and then it just like, then I just get excited because these are people that have money that they want to support the city of Houston with. They just need guidance on where to put that money. And so it's actually not as much of a push and pull and pressure that people would think when it comes to fundraising. It's actually like the people are already here. You just have to listen to what are they actually hoping to support and that's where I come in, because I'm like, oh, you want your, corporation to be associated with supporting the arts or supporting this, or actually you don't care about opera at all. You just want an opportunity to host your clients and give them a good time and be exposed to some awesome, experience, one of a kind experience. Guess what? We have it here, so it really is a fun time.
It's about finding opportunities within HGO and connecting them to opportunities that match what they need,
exactly.
What their interests are,
what they're passionate about. Absolutely.
What their passions. Yeah. You were talking earlier, a little earlier, about trajectories, and like you said, you're just starting out, but in a sense, the amount of, I wouldn't say you're just starting out. You're starting out in this position, but you've been around for a while, doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, there you go. I feel like an old soul.
You've been doing a lot. So what is some advice you would give to someone who wants to have your career path, or what do you wish you had known when you started out that would have been helpful?
Yeah. I know I spoke earlier about the culture behind being a hardworking person, as being Mexican American, as being a Latina. But the advice I would give to someone who's just starting out is like, yes, work hard and do the work that you do with pride, but don't make your whole life about the work, right? You are not your job title. And that is something that I'm just now figuring out and discovering for myself, is that I actually become a much more interesting and person at peace with myself when I have a lot more going on in my life than just work. And that's hard sometimes for Latinos, because, and I see it in my own parents sometimes, that, man, they will work themselves to the bone, but they also know how to relax. They also know how to have a great time. They also know how to put on a good party, right? Latinos know how to just bring our community together and decompress and have a good time. And I think that's something that was, especially when I was just starting out, I was forgetting, and I kind of lost myself in it a little bit. And I've had experiences of burnout before, back when I was teaching, back when I was singing, and I don't want that to happen in this career. Like, I want to take care of myself, and I want to thrive and last. And I also want to give myself the grace to change my mind, right? Like, if a few years ago I was telling people that I was a professor, guess what? I don't owe anybody anything. Like, I changed my mind. Guess what? Life happened, and then it went in a different direction. And I'm a more complex and beautiful human being for having all of these like chapters in my story that made me who I am today, and made me great at what I do today, whether that's work or just connecting with people genuinely, or just, finding ways to live my life to the fullest. I credit all of that to it. So that's definitely something that I would recommend. Just don't get lost in the work. And then also, as you begin, look at your leaders to, if you're someone who really is that kind of hardworking, thriving, I want to continue to build a career and I want to be a leader, that's not for everyone. But for those of you that is your trajectory, as you begin, look at the leaders that you have to begin crafting the leader that you want to be. Whether that's taking notes of what you don't want to do, or taking notes of like, I really like that my boss or my supervisor does this or this. Like, take note of those things as you define who you are. I've had many supervisors, and in like more than I should in the past like 4 years. And so, but I've really had the opportunity to have very genuine and great takeaways from all of those supervisors, whether for good or like things I don't want to have in my own style. And today I want to give a shout out to my supervisor, Kelly Finn. She is just one of the most empathetic and patient, and just she's also very proactive in checking in and on her team members in a way that allows all of us to be very independent in the work that we do. There's trust there. So we go back to this theme on trust, of just like, I trust my supervisor because she trusts me to do the work that I do. So as you begin, take note of those things. Look at the leaders that you have around you, whether it's your own supervisor or a supervisor in a different department, right? Pay attention to the people, the personalities, what got them there? What skills do they have as a leader that you could be taking note on now and practicing now in your role? I think that would be some advice that I would give to people just starting out.
I wish you had talked to me when I was in my 20s. That would have been great advice. No, but you're absolutely right. You are not the job. You are not the job. You are your soul. You are yourself. And the job changes. It can change, and that's okay. The setting changes, but it's not your entire life.
That's right.
No, that's very true.
Especially when we live in a world that has things like the pandemic, just like, like you got to be ready for it. Like you better be ready to adapt and change, and and everything's going to be okay.
Yeah. So you think you can plan out the next 10 years of your life? That's adorable.
Yeah, exactly. You can try. You can come up with some kind of plan. Sure, go for it. Good luck.
Well, it's the people who can sort of take things under stride and adapt that survive and also get to have a lot of fun. It's the people who insist on returning to past things or are rigid about it that have a really, really tough time. So absolutely. So, Lyanne, you know that we ask every gestora to leave a question for someone else. And I'm going to share the question that Suli Inirio left. I know she's a previous cohort in Sphinx. And she asked, what other medium, aside from the one that you currently have, could you use to tell your story? And originally I was going to ask you that question saying, what other medium aside from voice, when I just knew you on paper? Mm-hmm. But now I'm thinking that your medium isn't just voice. Your medium is communication. Your medium is connection, right? And you're telling your story. You're saying who you are through the way that you work. But if it weren't for that, what other medium could you use to express who you are? What else would you do that isn't fundraising or singing that you feel you could embody?
Yes, I think in one way or the other, I would try to find my community of Latino women here in Houston. It's something that I'm just now starting to embark on. Like, how can I tie in meeting women that inspire me, women that have similar stories as mine, but also maybe don't have similar stories as mine, right? And how can we come together to build community and place of thriving in like a city of Houston? And that's something that I'm just now working on. And actually, like this week, I have a meeting with an amazing woman that I got to meet at like one of the galas that I was attending for work. And one thing that stood out to me was that she has a big Latina women community. Like she knows so many people in the city of Houston. And when I was introduced to her, I was like, can I like go get drinks with you, happy hour or something? Can I learn more about your community and just see the ways that like you are involved in the city of Houston in a way that means a lot to you? And so that's my journey, is like building this community, but also like, how can I impact my city of Houston in a different way, right? If it's not opera, what can I do? And I'm still on that journey, and I'm hoping as I meet more Latino women that can help define what that means to me in this city that I love.
That is beautiful. And if you come across any cool gestoras, please send them our way. We'd love to chat with them and share their stories as well.
Yes.
Yeah. And what about you? What question would you like to leave for another gestora?
Where do you hope the fine arts industry will go? And what do you hope your impact will be in pushing it in that direction?
All right. That sounds like a challenge and a question.
Yes. Not only just what do you want to see, but what are you going to do to get it there? So
what are you going to do to make it happen?
That's right.
Well, Lyanne Alvarado, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you and to learn from you today. I wish you had been around when I was, like I said, in my 20s, 30s, also 40s. I wish you the best of luck in your career, and the Houston Grand Opera is very, very lucky to have you.
Thank you, Ximena, so much. It was such a pleasure talking with you today, and I will always be rooting for the success of this podcast and, of course, your success forever and always. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. This was Gestoras. This episode of Gestoras was recorded in Washington, D.C. and Houston, Texas, and was presented by me, Jimena Varela, and produced by Belén Lengua and Jimena Varela. Gestoras is produced in part with support from the Arts Management Program at American University. Thank you for listening, and until next time.